This is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Celeste Romero. On this week's Weigh-In, we're going to talk to you about, really they've been rumors running around, but Devin Haney versus Tank Davis as Tank's, the comeback fight. So we're going to break that down. We're going to break that down today because it's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. But nonetheless, that is this week's Weigh-In. So we jump right into that one. We're going to jump into this one. Devin Haney, Tank Davis. This is the one time I'm going to tell you, as much as I preached for Lamont Roach, Tank to get beat. Devin Haney, Tank Davis, I got Tank Davis over Devin Haney. I want Tank Davis to win that fight because the way I feel like Lomachenko beat Devin Haney, how every time Devin Haney gets beat, magically they find a way out of that. You know, I mean, I'm not going to speak to that, Ryan Garcia, that Ryan Garcia situation. I'm not going to speak to that everything everybody did was right, and what was wrong. I'm speaking to, that's another situation where magically they found out Devin Haney. They came out to get Devin Haney's clear record. And what I'm saying here is because all the stuff that came out with that is, as a fighter, for some that don't know, as a fighter, you have to take, certain tests, drug tests, and involved in going into a fight, up between the fight weeks, all the stuff. Now, mind you, King Rye, this is the first time I'm kind of really breaking this down, given that a lot of times we got a younger audience a lot of times. So given, obviously don't do drugs, but given that he tested positive twice, well on before the fight, you choose to still put that fight on. And then now after you get beat because you thought you were going to win, then you come out and say, well, no, he was positive. We need you to overturn that loss. You chose to go through that. That's kind of, but I'm not going to speak to what that was or wasn't, but I'm telling you right now, if Tank Davis, Devin Haney get in that ring, Devin Haney gets beat. No doubt about it. Devin Haney gets beat. There's no way Devin Haney can beat Tank Davis. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not. Because Tank Davis, only the few could stand in the ring with Tank Davis. And there's only, not even few, one, Lamont Roach. We talked about that. Lamont Roach never got his rematch, but I don't think it's the same Lamont that went through that fight now. So I don't kind of know how that would go. I kind of think it might favor Tank's way because I don't think it's the same Lamont. He fought Isak and didn't win against Isak either. So it's kind of like the Lamont we had then and the Lamont we got now is kind of, they're not on the same level, and that's the damaging situation with that. I'm not saying that one versus another should be, but what I'm saying here is that it's not the same Lamont. If you understand what I'm saying, it's not the same Lamont. It's not the same Lamont. So the best way I say this is that I would rather Tank Davis, Devin Haney, than see Lamont get beat by Tank. I'm be honest with you, because I have good faith in Lamont. I don't want to see Lamont get beat, so I would rather see Tank versus Devin Haney, which would be really good. It's rumored right now that the teams are, like it always is, they're calling each other. They're trying to get something going. So, I kind of feel like that's going to be good because I don't think Devin Haney going to win. You're coming up against a Tank Davis, and we all know what Tank does. Tank puts down opponents. The only opponent that has never been put down was that Lamont Roach, was that Isak. I'm pretty sure there's others, but those are the first two that just popped to my head. I'm not saying there isn't others. I'm just saying those are the first two that popped to my head, that Isak and Lamont. Now, my point here is that, I think Devin Haney getting in a fight with Tank, I don't think Devin Haney stands a chance. I think this is about to be, you know, when I say like Ryan Garcia, I don't mean by Tank turning around and, obviously, taking stuff he shouldn't. I mean by Devin Haney keep hitting the canvas. Look, 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 hitting that canvas, y'all. That's what I'm talking about. And I say that for multiple reasons because Devin Haney, I feel like Devin Haney, Garcia was not his first loss. His first loss was Lomachenko, and they gave the fight to Haney. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's not going to build the best boxer because you just you get on lucky judges' side. You going up against Tank, you're going to need to really box that fight. You can't sit there and say, okay, the judges got me because the judges are. Look what happened to Lamont. Judges with Tank. So it's an interesting way to slide for that. When you look at that, where it's gonna slide, because both of those fighters have well on had. I don't say Lamont draws, so I don't call that questionable. You didn't give Tank, you didn't give it to Lamont. I call that kind of like is well. But what I'm getting at here is that you got two guys that some stuff like Lamont drawing, where I felt Lamont had that fight. That's what I felt. And Lomachenko, because I'm not going to bring up King Rai because that's a mess in itself. Lomachenko lost to Devin Haney. Same thing. Judges gave it to Haney. That's the stuff I'm talking about where I say, hey, both of them have had some things that have kind of been questionable. And that's why I say now you're going to get in there against each other. It's not going to be questionable. It's going to be Tank all day, all night. It's going to be Tank. Tank's going to come in that fight. He's going to take it serious. I would hope Tank takes it very serious. We want to put down Devin Haney. We want him on that canvas. We want to count to 10. So then they can't say nothing. Then they're going to come up with, like King Ryan did when he lost to Tank. No offense to Ryan Garcia, but he talked about how the hydration claw and how he... When you sign the fight, you take that. Don't just look at the dollar amount you're going to make and be like, yeah, let's do this. No, you got to be like, oh, wait, I got a hydration like this. Well, do I want to do that? Right. Okay. So you can't just look and be like, oh, damn, look at them zeros for fighting Tank. Let me sign that contract. No, you got to look and say, hey, I got a hydration or this or that. It 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 built a way that you never truly understand. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm here, and it just, I don't know, built a very straight line to the way that things go. It's just like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, like, but no, that's just really what I get at here. That I think amidst no matter who wins, Tank Davis and Devin Haney, it's going to be a good fight. It's going to be, if they could make this happen, it's going to be good. It really is. It's going to be a real good fight because Tank Davis does great things, and I like the way Tank fight. I like the way Tank move. Tank is a very skilled, very good fighter. That's why so many of them get knocked out, because Tank's somebody that you can't let him keep wail the punches on you, because it takes a toll. It takes a very big toll when you let Tank keep bang, bang, rolling and rolling. That Tank Davis is a very good is a very good fighter. So when you looking at a lot of that, it's tough to see something with Tank and seeing Tank and saying, oh, that's is Tank Davis going to get it done? It's Tank Davis, it's like I said, it's that thing where you're like, hey, that's what I say, that it's, that's why I say that, because it's, we talking Tank here. It's just, when you talking Tank, it's always good stuff. always really good stuff when you're talking Tank. So that's kind of why I'm like, when you look at a Tank Davis fight, like I'm talking, we're looking at anything when you have Tank Davis coming in against the Devin Haney, that is a really good situation uh, amidst a boxing fight because first of all, you got two guys never been beat. Obviously, you know what I'm gonna say. Devin Haney been beat. Devin Haney was beat. He was beat against Ryan Garcia. They found it out. But most importantly, he was beat by Lomachenko. When we talk about that, as for Tank Davis, what was his mistake? Lamont Roach fight. He did not. It didn't look like he was taking it serious. That's how that happened. Will history repeat itself? No, no. I don't think Tank's ever going to do that again. Go in there and underestimate somebody, and they come in there and they really fight good. They they fight really good. You're not going to see that happen. You're not going to see Tank make mistakes like that because we're talking Tank Davis here. That stuff doesn't happen. So when we're talking that kind of stuff coming from Tank, it's not going to happen because Tank doesn't do stuff like that. When you look at Tank, that doesn't happen. Not at all. Not even a little bit. That kind of thing don't happen. That's the best way I could tell you. That kind of stuff doesn't. That kind of stuff doesn't really happen when it comes to Tank. Like you don't see him too much slip up like that. You know, you don't really see that, and I say that because it's just not something. It's not common. If you understand what I'm saying, it's not a real common thing to see Tank Davis get in a situation like that where he's practically made a mistake. Like I like to call, he's practically made the mistake and has messed up. Made the mistake and messed up. I mean, like I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat it for y'all. Tank messed up in that Lamont Roach fight because had he taken that more serious, it would have been a different fight. That's nothing but the truth. That's nothing but the truth. When you look at Tank Davis, had he took it right, that wasn't going to happen the way it did. I'm telling you, it wasn't. It wasn't going to happen like that. Not like that. Not the way Tank was. Not the way Tank was going. Not the way the fight was going. That wasn't going to happen like that. And that's kind of why I felt like Tank Davis should have kind of doubled down a little bit. You gotta be a little more like, what's my like? You gotta take it a little more serious. Don't go through and do stuff like that. Don't. It's all great thoughts. It's all great things. In terms of, he was able to find his house in that fight, but that disaster should have never happened. If you understand what I'm saying, like that disaster should have never came out and happened for Tank. That disaster very well should have been avoided, and you got to say to yourself, "Hey, Tank, you can't go through stuff like that." You know what I mean? Like you can't let that happen to yourself. And that's just why I say what I say because the likelihood of what happened, it's like, yo, that really went and happened. Like it's tough. It's tough. It's real tough when you look at all this stuff and you look at what goes on. You say, yo, what was Tank thinking? But I think with this Devin Haney, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good no matter what. I really do. I really do think it's gonna be good because when they get into all of that, it's gonna be like it's gonna be a good fight no matter how it draws down. They're gonna be able to make that a really good fight. That's why I think they're going to be really good. I can't wait for that. If they could get that done, because you know how it is. Sometimes they set up fights and they can't get the and they can't get they can't get the negotiations through, or they can't get something done. Like, I don't think that should be the case in this fight. I hope that they're able to get it done. I hope they're able to get it through, because more than most, I want to see this happen. I want to see Tank. I want to see Tank fight Devin Haney. I think that's a really good going around that, that we're hearing something about it, whether it turns out to be true, whether it turns out they're going to get that done, that'd be nice. Like I said, it'd be real nice to see that fight happen. You know, so that's something that could be really good. You know, so there's that's gonna be really good with all the stuff going on. That's gonna be that's gonna be really good, and I think no matter what, that's gonna be something that is gonna be real interesting. It's some good stuff. It's some good stuff. It's some good stuff. I don't see how it isn't. That's the best thing I would tell you is I don't see how it isn't good stuff. I don't see how it couldn't be, in terms of, all the fighting and all of what would go on. I think it's going to be really good, because the way that excuse me, y'all, and the way all the stuff is going, excuse me, y'all, and the way all that will be going, I think it's going to be good. I mean, more importantly, most we look at let's break it down like we normally do. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. So let's take a look. Let's pull up that Devin Haney box rec. Devin Haney box rec. First of all, Devin Haney 27. He sits at 5'9". He's got a 71-inch reach. So we're talking about that. Let's see. His record is 33 for 15 KOs. Obviously, has never lost, never drawed. So we're looking at that right now. They call him the Dream. Yeah, it looking good. It looking good. So that's that 71-inch reach. We're gonna bring up our boy Gervonta Tank Davis. Damn, y'all. I'm gonna bring it up for y'all. I'm gonna bring it up for y'all. I'm gonna bring it up for y'all. That box wreck, Gervonta. He's 5'5". He's at 67.5 inches for that reach. So when you look at that, first thing we're able to highlight here is that Devin Haney gonna have the height, but that doesn't change a thing because Tank got the stronger chin. So when we take a look at that, obviously Tank Davis is about 30 wins, 28 KO, and we all know that he's got one draw, and that's from Lemont. But look, Tank Davis, Gervonta Davis, he's 31. I still think no matter what, I think he could beat Devin Haney. I think he could beat Devin Haney. Now, Tank is that light, lightweight division. Let me go on and go back and find your boy for you. Now, Devin Haney is that Walter division. So we're gonna do some more stuff on that. That Walter. We're gonna do some more on that for you. Do 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 do. So the welterweight is about 147 pounds. There's a strict upper limit of 147 pounds. So we're going to talk about now. Lightweight is that 135. So it depends on where they kind of put the fight, but more than most, I think it's going to be fairly interesting because Tank to gain weight. I still think Tank gonna make some noise. Tank gonna stop him either way. Now, if Devin Haney losing weight, will that power? This is what we talked about because they had this problem. You know, you talk about this all the time. Will the power translate into when some of these guys get heavier and lighter? Yes, yes, yes. They talked about this with the Mexican monster, David Benavidez. We talked about this. Well, his power when he went up for that fight, they said, will his power translate? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And that's one of the interesting things that we talk about here is that the power for Tank, I'm pretty sure if he bumps up, if he gains weight, it's gonna translate. So the first thing, if you're Devin Haney, you gotta understand that the power's gonna be there. So you still gotta come up with a similar game plan. And I think the best game plan people can look at is that Lamont Roach fight. My bad, Lamont Roach fight. You look at that because there was a game plan and it was executed not perfectly, but good, really good. Because obviously it was a draw, so it wasn't perfect, but it was executed really well. Where you saw for the first time, you saw Tank have some adversity, and that's something that many would have not have thought was going to happen with all that was going on with Lemont. They would not have thought, oh, you know, look at all that was going on with Tank. They would have thought, wow, Lamont went and got it done. So that's another thing that I talk about, that that's another thing that was very. That's the kind of that's kind of something that when you think about it, is It's one of those things where you're like, yeah, that's something that's definitely it's something where you're like, it's one of those things where you're like, if you don't do a good game plan, you're gonna end up dropping like he did for King Rai. You're gonna end up keep drop left and right. And if you're Devin Haney, that's not what you want, but it's like I always say, somebody's gonna lose their all that night. Somebody's always gonna get snatched. And O will be snatched that night. That's the way I look at it. I say, hey, and O will be snatched. And O will be snatched at any point. You look at that, you say, hey, somebody gonna be snatching and all that night because you look at it. But like we said before on the podcast, a lot of times you get in these negotiations and they don't always go the way you expect them to. So that's gonna be a fair foremost is that we want the fight, but it comes down to glove size, ring size, weight, all there's a lot of depending factors. There's a lot of relying factors on whether this may or may not happen. But I just thought when I saw that kind of pop up, I said, whoa, Devin Haney and Tank, I came here to spend an epi on it because that's a big thing. That's a big thing, to see happening like that, a Devin Haney, Tank Davis. That's something that's like, that's however, and this is the thing. He has to defend his lightweight world title against Floyd Scatterfield. So obviously he's gonna fight Scatterfield possibly before or after Devin Haney. That is Haney interested in doing it? But Devin Haney talking a lot of junk for somebody who is gonna get beat. That's how they all are. They talking all that junk when they ready to fight Tank and they get beat. I mean, I don't really know what to tell you. That's how it always is. They talk, and then when they come get beat, they're like, I didn't mean to get beat. I don't know what happened. It's like, hey, you know what happened? You got beat. That's what happened. You got beat. That's just kind of the way I look at it. Like, you're gonna talk that talk, but when you get beat, you got beat. Like there ain't no talking to do left after you get beat. Ain't no talking no more. You got beat. That's just kind of how I look at it and see it. Like you got beat. You know, that's just the way I look at it. Like hey, you got beat. You got beat. Ain't no much we could do for you. You know what I mean? Like you got beat. You know, but nonetheless, y'all, we in the end of yet another epi. I would like to say this is kind of how it go. This is how it go for y'all. We in yet at the end of another epi. So this is kind of I wanted to give you a little something. But with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, share, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, share, man. We trying to hit our goals for this year. You know, we're trying to do what we can for this year. We're trying to do good for this year. You know what I mean? We're trying to hit our marks. So with that being said, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and you share, man, because you know they coming twice a week, every week. You already know. So with that being said, this is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sylvester Romero. And that's all I got for yous on this one. Weighing out.
The Weigh-In, where stories ignite.